Hello and welcome to this video. We're gonna go on a little drive in this video because I don't know, I feel like driving a little bit. So something that I've kind of been, as I was driving earlier, I was kind of thinking about this, and I had to park and like set up my camera and all of that to engage in this because I thought, what an interesting thing to talk about. Because it's something that truly only INFJs, well, not only INFJs, INTJs also can experience this because of our shared cognitive functions of NI dominant and SE in the last slot. So INTJs can also experience this, but INTJs are a lot less likely to be open about it, where INFJs are a lot more likely to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about it because I think it's very interesting. And it's an experience that only NI DOMs really have. And this is not to say that other types can't experience it. They absolutely can. The difference is that because for INFJs and INTJs, introverted intuition is our dominant function. It's kind of an experience that we have going on almost all the time, right? Sorry, I'm so phlegmy. I don't know what's going on. I just finished eating. I think I have GERD. I'm pretty sure I have GERD, and that's what the phlegm is all about. But I did just finish eating, so that, you know, phlegm city bitch, phlegm city bitch, you know what I mean? Anyway, so I wanted to talk about the experience that NI DOMs have of kind of going through life almost feeling like you're watching a movie a lot of the time, as opposed to actually like experiencing life itself. And I know that when any other type, or like any other person who's not an NI DOM hears that, they're gonna think, well, that's just called dissociation. And you're not wrong. Technically, you're not wrong. It is a form of dissociation, I guess, but it's a very different thing for NI DOMs. It's not because of some traumatic event or some, you know, whatever, something is happening and we're trying to forget, or, you know, any of that. It's not for any reason. It's literally just, that's just how we exist, right? A lot of the times, even when things are going really well and I'm having a fun time and it's great and I'm really enjoying my time and whatever, I can still feel like a disconnect from reality in a kind of dissociative way, but it's not negative at all. It's just very like, it's like I'm experiencing my life and what I'm experiencing, but like if it were a movie, if I was watching a movie instead of it being a real thing for me. And I think it's very interesting because this is caused by literally what I mentioned earlier. This is because we are NI dominant, introverted intuition dominant, and having introverted intuition dominant, unlike extroverted intuition dominant, extroverted intuition dominant can have a very dream-like way of existing where they're kind of going about the world in this very like, I don't know how else to describe it other than like dream-like, where it feels very like imaginative, like think like Disney characters, right? It's very like, oh, everything is, you know, whatever. That's not to say that everything is positive. What I mean is like, it's very dreamlike, like Disney. But for NI dominance, we are not like that at all. We are very much not necessarily like negatively slanted, but it's a lot more like, I guess the best way that I can describe it is that it's a lot more like a tunnel, kind of. But anyway, it's very difficult to describe these things because it is all intuitive, dominant types. It is about the imagination and like your inner world. And the inner world of intuitive types is going to be very different than the inner world of a sensing type, more often than not. But back back to the point, I feel like existing in this almost in this like movie type way of being creates a situation where there's a level, it creates that disconnect. So it almost feels like, I'm trying to get my words here, it almost feels like you're not experiencing the thing that you're experiencing while simultaneously also experiencing the thing that you're experiencing. And I cannot describe it in any other capacity other than that, because it's very difficult to explain what the hell this feeling even really feels like. But another thing that I wanted to address was that this is part of the reason why I feel, in my personal opinion, I feel like it's because of this way of being that therapy doesn't, like, therapy can work for INTJs and INFJs, but it's not super effective, because there's going to be a lot of things that the therapist, unless they themselves experience it too and are knowledgeable on these matters and stuff like that, they're not gonna understand it. They're not gonna understand it, and they're going to take a very practical and pragmatic approach to this, right? So excuse me. So I'm drawing from an example that I experienced with my therapist a while ago. This was like 2 years ago or so at this point, where I was kind of describing this to her, and I was telling her, yes, sometimes it feels like, not even sometimes, like a lot of the time it feels like I'm not really even experiencing life. And because of the situation that I was going through at that time, we kind of let it off, or left it off on terms of like, well, it's because you're dealing with the situations that you're dealing with. You know, I had, regrettably at this point, but at that time, I felt pretty sure about it, and I felt like it was what I needed to do. But I left my family, and I just went no contact with them. And this, along with other aspects, you know, my mom recently dying and stuff like that, it was all of a culmination of all of these different things that kind of led my therapist to believe that I was dissociating because of that trauma. And maybe on some level I was, perhaps. But the thing is that it didn't really feel like traumatic dissociation. It just felt like what I always feel, just naturally, my natural way of being, of dissociation from reality, a disconnect from reality. And my therapist and I myself included, I didn't really understand the whole INFJ thing and cognitive functions at that time, so I had no real answer for it. But now I'm looking back on it, and it's like, no, it was not because of the trauma. I wasn't dissociating because of trauma. I wasn't even really dissociating. I'm an INFJ. This is what we do, right? And IDOMs, we are more susceptible than any other type to get lost in our minds and create a lived experience almost that's not really set in reality. So it'll look a lot like the dreams that you have of life and the things that you want. Well, this is more to do with INFJs than INTJs. But with INFJs, it's like we will imagine this life where we're living what we want to live, even if it's not reflective of what we're actually living. So it'll look like, you know, let's say in terms of relationships, it'll look a lot like I will have a full-fledged relationship with someone in my imagination. And I'll spend like hours in my mind imagining this full relationship with this person and our experiences, and we go here, we go there, we live our entire lives until we're old and die. And then my imagination kind of stops thinking about it. And in reality, I'm just kind of laying in bed alone. And it sounds very sad to any outside perspective, but if you're an INFJ, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not sad. It's just like, in a way, it's to escape reality, but not in a like, oh, woe is me kind of way, just in a way of like, man, I'm like kind of dissatisfied with my life. So I'd rather just kind of recluse and think about the life that I want, as opposed to actually doing the things necessary to have the life that I want to live in the real world. And it's for this reason, the fact that it's not a mental condition or anything like that, it really is just a cognitive function and the way of being in a cognitive way. It creates the situation because therapy and psychology and all of these things are geared towards having some kind of concrete, factually based diagnosis or like way of seeing things and perspective. Therapy really does not take into consideration cognitive stack and cognitive functions a lot of the time. And so with INFJs, and I'm pretty sure with INTJs as well, but I can only really speak from the INFJ perspective. In that regard, therapy really doesn't work that well for me. It works in other ways, for sure. You know, with my therapist was able to help me do things that I can create in the world and like be able to navigate experiences in the real world, which is where I struggle immensely, is getting things, you know, I don't struggle with understanding relationships and understanding dynamics and understanding people, which is what therapy is mostly used for by people. I struggle with getting things out into the real world. That's my main struggle. And my therapist was able to help me a lot with that, with understanding the things that I need to do. Like she would suggest, you know, volunteering at places and, you know, stuff of that nature, and how to go about it and what to do and stuff like that, whatever. Excuse me. But outside of that, therapy doesn't really work the same for INFJs. I guess this video has kind of become a two-point video of, isn't it weird how INFJs and INTJs as well, how we function with this dissociation of reality almost? Probably more INFJs than INTJs. But it's like this dissociation of reality, but simultaneously also existing in the reality. And then also how therapy doesn't work for us as it works for other types. And because therapy is geared more towards the vast majority of people, which is the vast majority of people are sensing types, it creates a situation where therapy doesn't really work for us too well in a lot of ways. And I kind of wanted to tie this in with another thought. So I guess this is a 3-part video. There's 3 points I wanted to make. This video is kind of all over the place, but that's just the nature of NI, I suppose. It kind of lends into this idea that I've been entertaining for a little bit now, and I've kind of understood it more and more. And now with this information that I kind of been thinking about, it kind of brings to light this idea that I've been thinking about, where psychology really truly is based on sensing and factualness, where philosophy is based more in intuition and stuff. And this is obvious, we know this already, right? But what I mean to say with that is, I think a better way for INFJs and INTJs to really be of therapy almost to themselves in a way is to look into philosophy, specifically INFJs, because we have this love of psychology like no other. We love psychology, we love learning about people, but I really do think philosophy is a really great avenue to explore as an INFJ, to really be able to help yourself and figure out things that are specific to NI dominant types or intuitive types, because psychology is great, but psychology is only one aspect. Psychology is more understanding the sensing, and so that leaves a lot of room for questions for the intuitive or the intuition. The emphasis was all over the place. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation for intuition and understanding our natural intuition, when we really should be exploring that, because our intuition is, if you know, we're intuitive dominants, and we really need to get a true understanding of what intuition is. And I think philosophy is a great way to do that. Anyway, so that was the point. It's not just psychology, it's also philosophy. This is kind of a 3-part video. I don't know. I don't know where things were going, but that's kind of the nature of this channel, right? It's all stream of consciousness and kind of what was on my mind in a given moment, and kind of almost improvising a video in a way. But anyway, as always, oh no, this light is about to change. I'm gonna have to go, so I might have to like stop somewhere real quick to pause this video, because I don't really want to do it while I'm driving. You know what, I'll just pull into here. But anyway, as I'm pulling in, as always, don't forget to subscribe. You know the drill: up, down, left, right, pink and blue, Dance Dance Revolution, subscribe button, wherever it may be for you. And toodaloo. I don't know anymore. I'm about to end this video and then do some door dashing for some kashish. So I will be seeing y'all in another video. And yeah, take care. I hope you gleaned something from this video, especially my fellow INFJs. We need a lot of help. Anyway, take care.